Hey, good morning. It's 5 a.m. Mester Scrum. Hope everybody's doing well. It's Wednesday, midweek. This is episode 65. We're up to 65 episodes. Crazy, isn't it? Bet you most people didn't think I'd make it this far. I'll be honest with you, neither did I. But anyway, 5:30 a.m. It's good that I'm getting up early. I got lots of things to do. I was up late last night. And I'm going to talk about something about planning and getting a vision for your team. Because I saw a timeline people were putting out there in comparison, what's the issue? And it wasn't really a truthful timeline. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. But also I want to talk about spillover work. Now, Sujit was one of the ones who commented on the post the other day and asked a question. And I just wanted to get back to him. And thank you very much for your comments and questions, because it's great, because it continues the conversation, which was very interesting. The other day we talked about a pie chart, right? And on the pie chart, and now we're going to get into the 5amMesterScrum topic area, which is Scrum and Agile and things like that. And I'm going to adjust this. There we go. Adjusting the video. And I got my little whiteboard out, little 8x6 or 8x11 whiteboard, right? It's nice little one. And please like and subscribe to 5amMesterScrum and let your friends know and share. And again, feel free to ask questions, because it makes it fun. Especially after previous episodes, and then it makes me know that you're thinking and watching it, because then you got questions on how it came out. So yesterday I talked about the tasks, and I'm drawing a little pie chart for my podcast viewers. So I got the task, and then, I said at the beginning, at day 0, right, or day 1, day 0/day 1, I'm right next to it. There should be no tasks in the pie chart. So if we did this, there shouldn't be anything that says, hey, I did 3 tasks, like at day 0. And his question was about, well, what do you do about spillover? There's no way you're going to be at day 0. And this is a very practical, what we do here is we talked about practical Scrum and Agile, your feet. So in the practical world, there is going to be some spillover. However, and that spillover, and that's expected. I mean, as long as there's 1 or 2, not a big deal. But let's say we had 10 stories that we typically do, and maybe they're equal to 3 points each. Something like that. Okay. So now we're saying, hey, we have 10 stories typically on a sprint. They're worth 3 points each. Do we get, and maybe there's 1 or 2 stories that didn't get finished in their spillover. So 1 or 2 stories, which is 10% to 20% of work that wasn't finished, and maybe there's a couple tasks. So maybe there's like, it's not a percentage wise, but maybe there's like 10 tasks out of 100 tasks. Maybe there's 100 total tasks, and I'm writing 100 tasks. I'm writing 10 tasks on the little pie chart. So there's just a little 10% of the pie is actually already in process, right? There you go, 6 o'clock. So we got it done and started in the 5 o'clock hour. 2 things you got to watch out for. It's okay that there's a couple stories. I mean, I was talking ideal, but we're going to talk about that ideal and how to get to that point too, because actually that makes your team work better too. So you got 10%. If your team goes more than this 20%, you really, this magic number, like 20%. So if you do more than 2 stories that roll over from the previous sprint, tells me you're not spending enough time to get your stories done, or there's some planning issues going on, or maybe you just have work that's just too large, right? Maybe there's a lot of bugs. Maybe there's some quality issues that need to go into. So you got to really think about it. If you're above 20% of your story work rolling into it, maybe so you only got 8 stories done, 8 stories out of the 10 completed. So you have 2 stories that roll off, and those 2 stories may have a couple tasks that you did in the previous sprint. So then they would be in a done phase, right? If you have more than that, then you really need to take a retrospect. What is your real velocity, right? So if you have more than that, so let's say maybe you're only getting 6 out of 10, 6 stories out of 10 finished, then you really need to take a retrospective. You're not really an 8. You're not really that high. And I know some teams will give themselves partial credit for velocity for partial stories worked. Ideally, you don't do that at all, because in the end, it just gives you false hope, because every sprint you want to have the definition done met. So just because you got a point doesn't mean you finished the work, right? So the key is getting finished work that can be released to production whenever the customer decides they want to release to production. I mean, that's another argument. Does it have to be released to production? My philosophy is it should be ready for production and go into production anytime the customer wants to, right? So when you're done, by definition, or if you're claiming point value for something, those points should all be production ready points, ideally. There may be some extra testing you got to do, but that'll be that. So there are going to be maybe some tasks left. But if you ever go above this 20% mark, then the retrospective should kick in. And again, this is probably why we do 5 a.m. Mester Scrum and not 6 o'clock a.m. Mester Scrum, because there is a child potentially coming down the stairs. So if you go above the 20%, you need to have a retrospective. You need to really establish your basic velocity. Hi, Eddie.
No, this is me.
That's you? Oh, okay.
I'm on the board.
You're on the board? All right, cool. Thanks, Bo.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, there he goes. Imagine having that at work every day. That'd be fun. He's a good kid. So now I'm erasing everything, right? So that's the idea. You will have some carryover, but if it ever goes above 10 or 20%, you figure out your team as a team. What should that number be? You got to look at your team. Is it a little bit of work that just needs to be done? Then that's a different story. If it's a lot of work, then you're starting stories too early in the sprint. What I would recommend, clean the board. What are we at 7, 8 minutes? I'm just trying to think of where we are on this thing. We'll talk tomorrow about on the task front and cleaning the board. So I'll write that down. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about making sure your board's clean and getting everything done. So tomorrow I'll add some things about how to get to 0 at the start, right? Because that's really important. You'll have a lot more productive thing. So with that, so that's the idea. Yes, you'll have some. It shouldn't be more than 20%, let's say, of your stories get carried over. If you ever hit over 20% in a sprint, you really need to have a retrospective and say, why didn't we get this work done? Because 20% is too high. 20% is too high. Because if you did letter grades in school, right? And you got an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? Or A is the highest, B, C, D. So A is 10%, right? 20% is a B. Now, once you go 20%, you're now in C work zone. So if you look back at your school and you're very competitive on how you do in your grades and all that, maybe you're not. Who knows? Because a lot of developers didn't pay attention to school, but they're smart, right? Now you're in C work and D work. So once you pass that 20% mark, your commitments are more C work commitments because you missed 20% of your commitment. You always want to be higher than that. You want to be in the you don't want to go past 10. You want to be in the 5% level, which basically one story out of 10, right? All right. Now here's a timeline thing that I wanted to bring up. So I saw, and this kind of goes to something I was thinking about yesterday, and the reason why I brought this up was last night I got the 501(c) yesterday, right? Came in the mail. So we were talking vision stuff and just bouncing all over the place, topics, areas, what needs to be done, what is work. So, but I saw a thing that said like vision, vision requirements. By vision, hi Eddie. Vision requirements took like mini waterfall. They were saying, hey, it's waterfall. Vision may take, 1 to 3 months.
I'm gonna watch it right now.
You're gonna watch it right now? You're gonna go log on and watch our show? Okay. What's that?
What time you on?
I'm 5 a.m. Mester Scrum.
No, what time you on?
Can you go over there? Oh, okay. We got an echo. Please go in the other room. It's gonna be bad. I got a live viewer. There's number 2. It's Eddie. You got to turn that volume down, Ed. I can still hear it. That's pretty wild. And now I can watch it and listen. I can hear me. That'd be good. So anyway, so we got the 3-month vision. Sorry about that, everyone. It's live, right? This is live, live YouTube. So we got 3 months to come up with a vision. Then they talked about a week or whatever, or 2 weeks prep. And then they put on here, hey, we got a 1 week for the team, the dev team, to do the things. And they talk about, a day or 2 for deployment. That's that CI/CD stuff. CI/CD, right? So that's that DevOps thing. They always talk about fast. So what they were saying is that this is really waterfall and takes 1 to 3 months to get the vision stuff done. Maybe another 2 weeks to refine the stories, and then it only takes a week for dev, and then it takes 3 days. So they would say, so why is there a problem with dev, right? Because dev is pretty efficient. You should spend more time in here. Now, I agree. You should spend more time in here. Why we spend 1 to 3 months developing vision. However, this is where scaling comes into play. They don't really get 1 week's worth of work built up. They're either, let's say if it's 3 months, they're going to come up with like 5 weeks or 10 weeks of work. So this is actually, there's another week in here, and there's deployment a day, right? And there's 1 week here. Thanks, Ed. So let's say they give you 3 months, they give you 3 weeks. So it's really longer than that, unless you scale how many teams you have, right? This would be team one. So you got 3 months, or let's say 3 months or 3 months worth of vision stuff. You get work in the, and you get 2 weeks to decompose that work, right? Then you get enough work for like a bunch of teams. So either it's team 1, and you only have 1 team. They release 1 week's worth of work. You do a release in a day, another week, right? Until you get all the work done. So they can be working, 4 to 6 weeks just releasing code in 1 team. Or do you have another way of looking at it where I have it now working in parallel when you do scale? You do Scrum at scale. Maybe you do dad, I don't know. Some people like dad. Some people would like safe, right? Where you get multiple teams working together, right? So in the multiple teams, you have team 1 does 1 week, team 2 also works in parallel, team 3, team 4. So the idea, you have 4 teams working on it. Then instead of having 4 sprints, you get it all done in 4 weeks and dropping the code in. Now, I would say it's probably not going to be like 4 weeks. There might be another week of doing some other integration work or other work. You're not going to get it all done in that 1 sprint. But it's a misnomer on the timeline because they're saying, hey, this is so long and this is so short. And the dropping the code, like the DevOps stuff that we're doing now, takes, like in a day. So it makes it looks like this is the real problem. But in reality, this team is enough work for 4 teams or spread out of 4 weeks or 4 sprints. So I just didn't want all the onus to be on the business saying, hey, we're faster and everything like that. You business take too long. There is ways of doing that. I don't think business should be taking 3 months coming up with vision. However, I do say that their vision statement, like we were coming up with what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. The vision is a whole website, right? This is how I want the vision. This is how the business thinks. The business does not think in little tiny micro stories when they do the vision part. So their whole vision is a large website that needs to be broken down and will end up being multiple sprints worth of work. So it may take them a couple weeks or a couple months to come up with this vision, but that vision is full of work, right? It ain't gonna get done in one sprint. So the timeline I'm seeing people put down is like 3 months for business, 2 weeks to do some refinement for the stories and features, and then like 1 week for the team to develop code, and then 1 day for the code to get dropped. That's a fake timeline. It really doesn't exist because in essence, it's not 1 week worth of work for the dev team. It's going to be 4 or 5 or 6 weeks worth of work for the dev team, unless you scale it and have 4 or 5, 6 teams to do that work. But from a work quantity perspective, that timeline is like a false number. But if you scale it, you could theoretically get that work done in a week, but you have to scale it right and have to do it. With that, we're at the 17-minute mark. It's 5am Mester Scrum. We try to keep it within like 15 minutes. We went overboard a little bit. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about how to get a clean board so you do have zero and techniques that your team can do to do that. And thank you very much for joining 5am Mester Scrum. Thanks, Eddie, for the like on the video. We appreciate it. He's probably watching a video game right now. Oh, Sujas, good morning. Hey, man. How are you? Good morning. Cool. Hey, we got other people that are up at 5 a.m. in the morning. How are you? Good morning. There we go. I didn't even see that. Maybe that's something that a process improvement for YouTube. They're like little tiny things. Cool. So he's watching it. But anyway, we'll go in tomorrow. We'll talk about how to get to zero. Again, 20%. If you're over 20% on the rollover, you need to retrospect it because something's wrong, right? So, but thanks, man. See you later. Thumbs up. Eddie already gave it a thumbs up. We'll get some more thumbs up. And he rang the bell, but you can only ring the bell once. So I don't know, maybe de-ringing the bell. So anyway, you all have a great day. It's Wednesday. Enjoy and happy scrumming. All right. See ya.